Daf Mem Hey Amud Beis will begin Mem Hey Amud Aleph, the Mishnah, 5 lines from the bottom. Zok the Mishnah, Mi Sheyashan Baderech. Somebody was traveling and he fell asleep. And he was asleep and not aware that Shabbos has come. It became dark and he was not aware that it was the onset of Shabbos. And therefore he did not have das to be kaina at Chum Shabbos. Nevertheless, he has 2,000 amas in every direction. Divra Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. So that's what Rav Yochanan ben Nuri says. Even though he did not have das to be kaina tchum, nevertheless he is kaina automatically. He has 2,000 amas in each direction. But, however, the Chacham Moimrim ein lo ela arba amas. He said no, he only has arba amas, like a person who is outside of tchum. He doesn't have a tchum, and he only has arba amas. Rav Eliezer Omer, he agrees that he has arba amas, but he's machmir with it, and he says, "Hu b'emsan." It's not 4 amas in each direction; it's 4 amas in total, meaning it's 2 amas in each direction. He's in the middle, and he has 2 amas in each direction. Rav Yehuda Omer, he says no. He argues. He says, "Le'er eze ruach shi'etzayelach." He doesn't have necessarily only 2 amas in each direction. He can go 4 amas in any one direction. We don't say he is necessarily in the middle. He can go 4 amas in any direction. But Umayd Rav Yehuda, Rav Yehuda's Moedesh in beer life, he chooses 4 amas in one direction. He cannot retract and do it in a different direction. So he could choose and have all of his 4 amas in any one direction. But once he chooses that direction, that's fixed. He can't change that. Now, if we say that a person only has his 4 amas, and he only has 4 amas, he doesn't have a paim amas. So if you have a case where you have 2 people that were unaware that they were, it could be kind of that they have to be kind of the tchum, they were sleeping on the way, or 2 people that went beyond the tchum, that they're restricted to 4 amas. So hayu shnayim mixas amois v'zeh b'seich amois v'sholzeh. And where their 4 amas overlap. So if you have 2 people, and this person has dalet amas here, and this person has dalet amas here. So you have the 2 people, they're close to each other, each have dalet amas. But this one has dalet amas this direction, this one has dalet amas in that direction. If they overlap, so for instance, his 4 amas comes to here, and his comes to here, so they overlap, so you have 2 amas which they share in common, for example. So therefore, they can bring food and they can eat together in that middle area, in the overlapping area. It's common to both of them, and therefore they can both come into that middle area where they overlap, and they can eat together there. But a person, he cannot take his items beyond his 4 amas. Not only is he restricted to his dalet amas, his chafetzim, his articles, his objects are also restricted to the dalet amas. So he can go into that overlapping area. His friend can come into the overlapping area. They can bring each one their chafetzim into the overlapping area, but they cannot be carried into the other side. If there were 3, and the middle one was overlapped by the other 2. Hu mutri moyim, he's with mutter with them. Vein mutarim moy, and they're mutter with him. But the 2 ones on the sides are also with each other. So if you have an area where they all have in common, there's 3 of them, and for instance, the one on the side, on one side, he has his 4 amas. The person in the middle, his 4 amas overlaps with him. Then the person on this side has 4 amas, and his 4 amas overlaps with him. So the middle one can eat with him on this side. The middle one can eat with him on this side, but the 2 sides don't overlap, so they cannot eat with each other. The 2 on the sides are also with each other. The middle one could go in this area where it's common, he can be with this person. On this area side where it's common, he can be with this person. but the two ones on the sides don't overlap, so they can't be with each other. They can't eat with each other. So Amar Rav Shimon, what is this compared to? This case of we're saying where the three and the middle one overlaps on each side, but the two on the sides don't overlap with each other, and they're also with each other. It's comparable to a case where you have three chatzeres that are all open to each other. They also, each one of them opens into the Rishus Harabim. So you have three chatzeres side by side. They all have openings that they open. There's a Pesach here, it opens to this one. There's a Pesach here, it opens to this one. So there's a Pesach that opens on the side, each one to the Chaser. Now they all independently have a Pesach. There's a road here, and they independently have a doorway, an opening, an entrance to the Rishus Rabbim. Meaning that none of the Chatzeres have Drissus Rabbim on the other one. There's no right of way that one Chaser has to the other one. They all independently have their access to the Rishus Rabbim. They don't have to travel through one Chaser to get to the other, to the Rishus Rabbim through another Chaser. So that means, therefore, that each Chaser can make their own Eruv. Each Chaser has houses opening to the courtyard. In order to carry in the Chaser, they have to make their Eruv. They can make independently their own Eruv, which means that each Chaser can carry, B'nai Chaser can carry within that Chaser. They also have the option of making an Eruv with another Chaser so that they can carry from one to the other. So they can make their own Eruv, which allows them to carry within the Chaser. If they make an Eruv with another Chaser, they can carry from one Chaser to the next. So this case that we had is similar to the case where you have the three Chatzers that open to each other and open to the Rishus Rabbim. Irvushtaim imheim tsois, if the two on the side, each one made an Eruv with the middle one, so this one made an Eruv with the middle one, this one made an Eruv with the middle one, which means they can carry with the middle can carry here. And they can carry with the middle can carry here. But the ones on the side can't carry with each other because they don't have an Eruv. The middle one has an Eruv with both of the sides, but the sides don't have an Eruv with each other. So, Irvushtaim imatsois imutaras imohem, the middle is mutar with them, vehem mutaras imo, and they're mutar with it. But the two ones on the side are also with each other. So going back to the Reish of the Mishnah, the Reish of the Mishnah said that if a person was traveling and he was unaware that it was Shabbos, he fell asleep, and he wasn't aware that it was dark, nevertheless, he has a tchum, he has alpaim amma in each direction. So the Gemara Boy Rava is the following Shaila Michael Savar of Yochanan ben Nuri. What is the reasoning for Yochanan ben Nuri? Why is he kind of alpaim shvisa? He has alpaim amma. Does he hold mizbar kasover hefse hefker kainim shvisa? Does he hold that things which are hefker, that are ownerless, things that are hefker, nevertheless they are kainim shvisa? So if you have an object which was on the onset of Shabbos was in a particular location, it didn't have an owner, something lying around, for instance, on the road, even though there's no owner, and even therefore obviously there's no das that it should have a particular shvisa, it should be koina shvita in a certain place, that it should have a certain tchum. Nevertheless, it automatically has a tchum from where it is. That's considered its place, and it has alpai mama in each direction from that place. So is that what he holds? And therefore, he holds therefore a sleeping person who also doesn't have das to be koina shvisa, is nevertheless has a tchum. Ubedinu lives like a bekela. And really, he could have said the machlekes, the Tana could have said the machlekes in the Mishnah with kalim, with objects which are hefker. But why does it mention it by a person who was sleeping? Perhaps to show you how far the Rabbanan go, that the Rabbanan say that even though it's a person, and you might have thought that even though it's a person and he could be kind of a shvisa, even though he's sleeping, even though we say that a hefse hefker, according to the Rabbana, are not kind of shisa. But I might have thought that a person is kind of shisa, even though he doesn't have das. And that's why it says it by a person, perhaps, to show you how far the Rabbanan go, to teach you that it's not only by hefse hefker that chafetzim, articles, items which are hefker, there's no das, they're not kind of shisa, but even by a person But even by a person who did not have intent, there's also no shvisa. So why should I think a person is any different? Because now, I might have said hoel v'nir kona. A person has the capability of being kind of shvisa. If he was awake, he would be able to be kind of shvisa. So I think yashan nami kona. Therefore, I would say that since he has the ability, I might have said even when he's sleeping, even though he's not cognizant and he doesn't actively have das, but since he's a person that is a bar das, he's capable of having intent, I might have thought that he's kind of shvisa. Kamash malan delay. That's why it teaches you by a person that even by a person he's not kind of shvisa. So is that the pshat in Rav Yochanan ben Nuri that he holds that chefsei hefker, even items are kind of shvisa with there's no das if they're hefker? And the only reason it mentions it by Adam is to tell you the teacher Kaycha the Rabbanon, or perhaps no. Because Rav Yochanan ben Nuri, Ba'alma Chefsei Hefker ain't kind of Shvisa. Or perhaps no, that even Rav Yochanan ben Nuri agrees that Chefsei Hefker are not kind of Shvisa. And over here, why is it different by the person? Because for this very reason, since he has the capability of being kind of, he was awake and be kind of, he's sleeping is also kind of. Amar Rav Yisrael says, Tashma, let's bring a riot from the following. Gesharmim sheyad Meir of Yontiv. If it rained before Yontiv, so it rained before Yontiv, and therefore when Yontiv began, it didn't have an owner. So it was hefker. It was just rain, there was water, and water on the ground, and there was no owner when Yontiv came. Yesh lem alpayim amah l'chol ruach. It has 2,000 amas from each direction. So we consider the Mokum Shvisa from where it is, where the water is on the onset of Yontiv, and it is kind of Shvisa. So l'chayra it's chefsei hefker, it's kind of Shvisa, and there's alpayim am in each direction. B'Yontiv, if the rain fell on Yontiv, harehen karagle kol adam. Then we say it's karagle kol adam. If it fell on Yontiv, then we say it's not kind of the shvisa, it's not kind of shvisa from where it lands, because it wasn't there on the onset of Yontiv. We say that it's karagle kol adam, the one who collects the water first, who draws the water first, it goes with his tchum. Wherever his tchum is, that's where the water can be taken. And someone else, as Taisus therefore mentions, if someone would take it from the first person, so if Reuven draws the water and now he gives it to Shimon, Shimon is restricted in carrying the water to the tchum of Reuven. So now, if you say Rav Yochanan ben Nuri holds that he holds that chefsei hefker kind of shvisa, that things that are hefker nevertheless are kind of shvisa, Hamani, who we can say, who is the Tana of this Bryce over here? We can say, Hamani Rav Yochanan, it's Rav Yochanan. Ali Amrad if he holds, but if you're going to say he holds hefker, that chefsei hefker ain't kind of shvisa. But if you are going to suggest that he does not hold it, he only holds it by a person, but not by a chafatzim, Hamani like Rabbi Yochanan Rabbanan, then who is the Tana? It's according to nobody over here. So doesn't that show you clearly that Rav Yochanan ben Nuri holds not only by an Adam, but he holds chefsei hefker kind of shvisa? The Rishonim are bothered with this case, that on this case it says that if the rain fell on Yontiv, so the rain does not have its own, it's not kind of shvisa, because since it wasn't there on the onset of Yontiv, even according to Rav Yochanan ben Nuri, it holds chefsei hefker kind of shvisa, but it has to be there, it has to be on the ground before Yontiv. If it wasn't in this place before Yontiv, on the onset of Yontiv, it's only the rain fell on Yontiv, not on the onset of Yontiv, they're not kind of shvisa. And they're bound by the case that we had before, the Ramban, the Ritva, they're bound by the case we had before, that if a person, he is traveling on a sfina, and if you hold Ein Tchum L'Mala Me'al Sora, then when he arrives at the port on Shabbos, he's kind of shvisa on that place, on the port. So you see, even though he wasn't there on the onset of Shabbos, if you hold that there's no Chum L'Mala Me'al Sora, so it's considered that it's in its place, it arrived at the place of its Chum on Shabbos, and he has Alpayim Amma from the place that it arrived on Shabbos. And yet over here we're saying if it rained on Yom Tov, we're saying that it's not kind of shvisa. So it's kiragle kol adam. But they're machalik over there between a person and an inanimate object. If a person, if he's not kind of shvisa, hasn't arrived in a place, he's lamala me'asora, so his das is that his shvisa will be on the place that he ultimately arrives at, in his ultimate destination. But obviously, an inanimate object doesn't have any das. So if it is in a particular place on the onset of Shabbos Yom Tov, so if you hold hefse hefker kind of shvisa, that's where his chum is. But if it's not there, then obviously it doesn't have any das, so it does not have a tchum. It's kiragle kol adam. It assumes the tchum of the person who picks it up first. Yosef Abaye v'karmel shmaitza. So Abaye was sitting and he said over this, what must come from Rav Yosef. Omerle Rav Safra, Abaye Rav Safra said to Abaye, what's your raya from this case? And maybe we're talking about it, the rain, it was, rain clouds were close, near a city. There was a nearby city. And maybe the reason why it's kind of shvisa and it has a tchum is not because chefse hefker kind of shvisa. Maybe it's not kind of shvisa. But over here, the people in the city, the nearby city, they had das for that water, for that rain. And that's why it's kind of a shvisa and it has a tchum, because of the das of the people in the city that are anticipating this rain. And therefore, that's why it's kind of the shvisa. Amrle, Abaye said to him, no. You can't say that that's the pshat. And you must say that Rav Yochanan ben Nuri holds chafse hefker kind of shvisa. You must say that, because I'll bring you a ride from the following. This now we learned in the Mishnah, Bor Shel Yochid, if it's a well that belongs to a private person. Kiragle Yochid. It has the tchum of that person, of the person that owns the bore, that owns the well. And even if somebody else comes along and draws water from it, it's restricted to the tchum of the owner of the bore. And if it belongs to people in a city, it's restricted to the tchum of the people in the city. If it's a well that's reserved for the people who are oila from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, so they're coming from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, kiragle amamala. So it doesn't have any particular tchum. It's kiragle amamala. It has a tchum of the person that draws the water. So it doesn't have an owner, and it has the tchum of the person that draws the water from the well. So it doesn't have its own tchum. Now, but we learned in our brayso bor shel shvatim, a bor that belongs to the shvatim, that was reserved, was prepared for the shvatim when they traveled to Eretz Yisrael. So yesh lam alpayim amal chol ruach. It is not kiragle mamala. It doesn't say it has a tchum of the person that draws the water. It has a tchum from that place in the bore. It has 2,000 amas in each direction. So you see, it is kind of shvisa. So the first, in previous Mishnah, the water, if it belongs, doesn't have an owner, shel oile bavel, it doesn't have an independent shvisa. So that Mishnah holds the chafse hefker are not kind of shvisa. But this price over here says that it has alpayim amal chol ruach. So doesn't that show you that this Tana holds that chafse hefker are kind of shvisa? So Kashana Adon, it seems to be a stira Lashmamino, how Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, how Rabbanan. So how do we resolve it? It must be that the Mishnah that says that it doesn't have it as shvisa, that's Rabbana. All have to have kar, not kind of shvisa. This bryce over here that says Alpine Mamlech Chol Ruach, it's have to have kar kind of shvisa. Must be Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. Must be the Rav Yochanan ben Nuri holds that have to have kar kind of shvisa. So we must say that in our Mishnah as well. Ki also lekame the Rav Yosef, when Abaye came before Rav Yosef, Amalei Alchi Kamer Rav Safra, Alchi Aharalei. This is what Rav Safra said, and this is what I answered, and to support what your position is. Amalei, Rav Yosef said to Abaye, Amalei Tem Lemigufa. You could have slugged him up. You could have answered from the case itself. He wanted to say that it's not a raya from the case of the rain clouds, because maybe it was close to a city and the people of the city had asked for it. No, you could disprove him from that case itself, and that what he's suggesting is not tenable. Because if you hold sham skinan, so if you want to suggest that we're talking about the rain clouds are near to a city, and it's because the people of the city have das for that rain, no, because then the lotion is incorrect. Then it shouldn't say it's 2,000 amas in each direction from where the water is. Rather, it should say it adopts the tchum of the people in that city, which is not necessarily one and the same. If you're saying it's because the people in the city have das for that rain, therefore it should be like their tchum. Okay, it should be like their tchum. It should be therefore, the Tana should say, it's karagle, the residents of that city. You shouldn't say it's alpai mamal chol ruach halamai. That must show you that no, it's not because of the das of the ansheir. It has its own independent shisa, even though it's chefse hefker, it's kind of shisa and has 2,000 amas from where the water is. It says if the rain fell on Yontiv, then it's karagle kol adam, who the ultimate owner. It has the tchum of the ultimate owner. Why is that so? Why don't we say that, well, the rain came from the evaporation of the water from the oceans. So why don't we say that it has the tchum of the ocean, of the nearby body of water, and it should have that tchum? So let us say that it's not like Rabbi Lezer, because according to Rabbi Lezer, the rain comes from the evaporation of the oceans, and therefore we should say that it should be restricted to the tchum from where it was in the ocean. We shouldn't say, according to that where the rain falls on Yontiv, that it should be karagle kol adam. If the source of the rainwater is, as Rabbi Lezer says, from the ocean, from the evaporation from the ocean, then it should have the tchum, it should have to be restricted to where it was in the ocean on the onset of Yontiv. So let us say it's not like Rabbi Lezer, and that's not the source of the rainwater. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says, no, not necessarily. We could say it's like Rabbi Lezer, and here we're talking where it had rain clouds that were present on Erev Yontiv, and therefore it wasn't in the ocean and at that time, and so it was in an area above 10, and there's no tchum. It was in the rain clouds. It was in the clouds that are above 10 from the ground. It did not have a makam, and its makam is when it rains, and therefore on the onset of Yontiv it didn't have a makam. It rained on Yontiv, so therefore it's karagle kol adam. Now, as the Rishonim speak out, that when it was in the ocean, even though it was Lamala Me'asara, but we don't consider that to be above 10. If it would be on the ocean, it would have a makam, because we would consider it the whole body of water as one item, and it would be considered to be resting on the ocean floor. So even though technically the water on the surface is above 10 from the ocean floor, but nevertheless, it's considered as one mass, and it's considered resting on the ground. So therefore, if we would say if the rain did come from the ocean, from the evaporation of the ocean, so Taisus the Ritva, they say that it would be considered to have a makam, even though technically it's above 10, it would be considered on the ground and have a makam, and it would be kind of shvisa in that place. But here we're talking where it has rain clouds, and Erev Yontiv, it's in the sky, it doesn't have a makam, so the only makam is after it rains, it's on the ground, it's karagle kol adam. Well, how do you know the rain is coming from those clouds? Maybe those clouds dispersed and new clouds came. The Gemara says, no, there's a simon. It was, for instance, it was low-hanging, it was in a certain shape, etc. And right before Yontiv, and then on Yontiv, a short time later, it rained. So you know that the rain came from those clouds. And maybe I'll tell you that perhaps this is so, and in a chanami, it would be a sofek, v'baisema, have a sofek yudreim, but chum is a drabanan, and the sofek yudreim lahakil, but it's of as a hakil, there to be makel. Therefore, we are makel and say that the rain that fell on Yontiv was from those clouds, even though perhaps it is uncertain, it's a suffix, but it's a suffix. The Rabbanan will say that it did come from those clouds, and therefore it did not have a shvisa on the onset of Yom Tov, and therefore it's keragle kol adam. The Rishonim asks a question, well, let's hold, if you hold that Tchumim are the Rabbanan, but if there's Yud Beis Milim, there are many shitas that hold that Yud Beis Milim, even according to the Tanoim that hold that Tchum are Dorabanan, but if it's a distance of Yud Beis Mil, 12 mil, then it is a Daraisa. And over here, this is could very well come from that type of a distance. So why do we consider it to be a Dorabanan and not a Daraisa? The Keren Oyer says is that even if we say that Yud Beis Mil is Daraisa, but that's only by Odom and not by Kalim. The Ramban argues with that, and he says, no, if we say it by an Odom, certainly we would say it by Kalim. So he says, the Ramban, that when we say Yud Beis Mil is a Daraisa, that's if it travels the entire Yud Beis Mil. But if the rainwater came from a distance of Yud Beis Mil, of Yud Beis Mil, and now you're talking about taking that water and not traveling Yud Beis Mil, then there's no Isser Deraisa in that case. Even if you hold that Yud Beis Mil is a Deraisa, that means traveling or taking something a distance of Yud Beis Mil. But if something came on its own and it came from the distance of Yud Beis Mil, you're carrying it beyond, or you're carrying it up to or beyond Yud Beis Mil, as long as you're not traveling or it's not traveling in entirety, the person is not traveling with it Yud Beis Mil, that's not a deraisa.